So this is our program of the evening, and it says Marine Corps Heritage Foundation Annual Awards Dinner, celebrating a history of excellence. I want to cover this a little bit. The first few pages are sponsors pages. We have Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Wells Fargo, Boeing. I mean, with sponsors like that, it's going to be a well-funded event. Then we have the sequence events, the itinerary for the evening. And when we first got there, actually this event lasted for 6 hours, or 5.5, 6 hours. It started with me receiving my award medal. The CEO put it around my neck, and we had a photo op. And the CEO of the Heritage Foundation is Lieutenant General, retired Robert Blackman. Then for the next hour and a half or so, there was a meet and greet where everyone gathered and mingled. It was pretty neat how people, most of which who were incredibly successful with rich history, would come up and take an interest in our story. And I must say, Maryland really stood out and shined as we met these folks. So on the next page, we have a special recognition award, and it went to History Flight. And History Flight is an organization that goes to old battlefield sites, locates soldiers who had died on the battlefield, exhumes their bodies, runs DNA to find out just who they are, and repatriates them back to the United States and buries them wherever their relatives wish. I think it is usually at Arlington where their final resting place is. So, anyway, during dinner, a representative of History Flight, the History Flight organization, came up to me and presented me with this medallion gift here. You see that? On this medallion is a photo of Private Edwin W. Jordan. He was killed in the first day of fighting in the Battle of Tarawa in World War II. And Tarawa is a little island in the South Pacific. And Edwin was one of the soldiers who had been repatriated from the battlefield of Tarawa back to Arlington. Anyway, I thanked her for the gift and told her that we were planning on going to Arlington the next day, and that we would look for where he was buried and say a little prayer for him. She told me that he was buried in Section 60 at Arlington. And now I'm thinking History Flight probably chose me to receive this little medallion because I received the Major Norman Hatch Award. Major Norman Hatch was the videographer who filmed the Battle of Tarawa, and even won an Oscar for the film footage he took. He put himself in harm's way. He was right on the front lines with the Marines. He was shooting film, and the Marines were shooting the enemy. So the next day at Arlington, we visited Carl and Cora Ruth's grave. Carl is Grandpa Ruth's brother. Then we went up and witnessed the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We also wanted to visit Robert and Virginia Ruth. Robert is Carl's son and Grandpa's nephew. Robert is the one who interviewed Grandpa about World War I. And Carl and Robert were both big-time news reporters. Oh, as info, Robert's son James and his wife Kathleen are both members of our little Facebook group page here. So anyway, after the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, Marilyn and I were walking down to where Robert and his wife Virginia are interred. And on our way, we happened to be passing this Section 60. I looked over next to where we were walking and saw that there was a recent burials with temporary markers sticking up out of the ground. So we checked to see if Edwin Jordan here from my medallion could possibly be one of these, and sure enough, the second grave marker we looked at was his. The grass was gone where they had disturbed the ground, so in the dirt I wrote, "Finally, R.I.P., finally rest in peace," and said a little prayer. I was pretty happy to find this grave so easily, as we had been doing a lot of walking and wasn't sure how much energy we had left to search out a grave that wasn't even in the Arlington database yet. Anyway, after paying our respects for Edwin, we continued on down to Section 63 and found Robert and Virginia's final resting place. Okay, and over here we have a special recognition for Lockheed Martin. And on this page, special recognition for the Honorable James N. Mattis. And this was recognition for exemplary leadership given to James Mattis, and he is the 26th Secretary of Defense. He's a military advisor to the Commander-in-Chief and is over all the U.S. military from the Marines, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Coast Guard, and National Guard. So when General Manners entered the room at the meet and greet, I could see him scanning the room looking for me. So from across the room, I let out a whistle and yelled, "Yo, yo, Mad Dog, over here." I don't know how many of you know it, but Mad Dog is a nickname. Anyway, he spotted me, gave me a high sign, and made a beeline for me. We talked a bit about policy and such, and he insisted on having a photo taken with me. Of course, I obliged. I mean, who am I to deny him? After all, we both received an award this night, right? So, long story short, the Secret Service didn't appreciate my good old boy attitude with Mattis, and I found myself having a nice long talk with the Secret Service back in their holding cell. Room. They told me to call it a room, not a cell. Anyway, that's Mattis. And over here we have a military guest of honor. This is Robert Neller. He's the 36th Commandant of the Marine Corps, a 4-star general, and is the head honcho over the Marine Corps. And he was the military guest of honor at the dinner. Both General Mattis and Robert Neller both spoke at the dinner. They also had an award for, not shown in the program, for Senator John Warner. I think it was probably a Lifetime Achievement Award. He's over 90 years old now, and back in the day, he was Secretary of the Navy and a 5-term senator from the state of Virginia. I see he was also married to Elizabeth Taylor. But who wasn't, right? Oh, before I move on, to clarify, of course, that story of how I met Secretary Mattis was not true, and the story about the Secret Service was not true either. However, we did meet him at the meet and greet, and I did get a photo of myself with him, and he's a nice guy. Now the next pages are for the others of us who won awards. Here's an award for an autobiography book. Another for stage play up here, and photography, an award for photography. Poetry, best article. Here's an award for short documentary, history of Camp Lejeune. And over here, on this page, is an award for nonfiction book won by Mark Bowden. Mark Bowden is a world-renowned author, wrote other books like Black Hawk Down, which was turned into a movie, and Killing Pablo, The Hunt for the World's Greatest Outlaw, Pablo Escobar. The cool thing here is when we went to the gift shop to pick up a copy of Mark Bowden's book, we found ourselves in line behind a guy by the name of A.J. Lahouzao. Now, we met A.J. and his wife Tina earlier, and we had a nice conversation with them. Anyway, A.J. took our book as we were standing in line and insisted on buying this $30 book for us. Anyway, thanks again, A.J. I think A.J. is a pilot for Delta and was a test pilot for the Marines. And down here is an award for recognizing women in the Marines. And over here is the coveted centerfold page of the program, and it is the Major Norman Hatch Award for a documentary feature. George W. Ruth, American Marine, World War I. I believe there was a lot of competition this year for this award. I say this because lately there's been a lot of buzz and activity out there by creators due to this being the 100th anniversary of World War I. But because of the rare and historic value of Robert Ruth's interview of Grandpa Ruth, the foundation had no choice but to choose this documentary to win this award. Pretty cool. Okay, let's see. The next page is an award for articles published in newspapers, magazines, etc. Here's another one for photography. This place shows an award for exhibit displays pertaining to Marine history. And down here, an award for distinguished reporting covering Marines abroad. And then we have an award to a lady for her work on World War I publications and symposiums. And down here is one for distinguished news reporting of Marine Corps. Now this page is an award given to excellence in art. I spoke with this guy. His name is Chris Cuxey. He does this kind of interesting and thought-provoking art shown here. He'll start with a large figure or object, then attach art in miniature form to it. In this one, he has a life-size statue of a Marine and attaches to it are weapons, planes, soldiers, etc. You can go to YouTube to see more crazy cool work from this very accomplished and famous artist, Chris Cuxey, I guess Cuxey. And finally, over here we have an award for fiction. During the meet and greet, Marilyn and I spent quite a bit of time talking with Jeff and his wife. Jeff is the author of 13 New York Times best-selling novels. His father is Michael, and he's a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, and it looks like Jeff followed in his father's footsteps doing the same kind of writing. After we talked with him, we went over to the gift shop and bought this book, seen here, and later had him sign it. And next page was our menu. The main entrees was tenderloin and sea bass, and the sea bass was really good. And here's the judges, the contributors, and the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation leadership and staff. And that's the program for the night's events. Now, I also received this folder with a certificate inside. You'll see me carrying around this folder throughout the course of the evening. And it is a brick registration, and it reads, Brick Registration Certificate. The Marine Corps Heritage Foundation certifies this inscription, Stephen L. Smith, 2018 recipient of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation Hatch Award, is to be engraved on a brick lining the winding pathway of Semper Fidelis Memorial Park, overlooking the National Museum of the Marine Corps. And I think that's pretty cool that they'll have a brick there. If it was up to me, I would have changed this inscription to add George Ruth and Robert Ruth, because without them, we wouldn't have this award. The award was more about them than me, that's for sure. And here's one more thing I got, and it's a check I got for $1,000 from the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. And it almost paid for our trip to Washington, D.C. I think we would have went anyway. But we really appreciate that. That's pretty cool. So here's Marilyn and I and 400 of our closest friends. Actually, I thought we would be seated in the back 40 somewhere, but that wasn't the case. Here we are seated at a table, joining the tables of the most powerful men in the world. Here's Secretary Mattis at this table. And over here is John Kelly, President Trump's Chief of Staff. And this guy right here is Richard V. Spencer, the Secretary of Navy. And this is Paul Calsbeek, a big shot with Wells Fargo. Now, here's another picture. That's Marilyn and I to the right, very right of the picture. And Secretary Mattis is right in the middle of this picture. And at our table, there was Adrian King and his wife Caroline to the left of Marilyn, and they're from Philadelphia. Adrian has quite the resume. Right now, he's a big-time lawyer and a big wig in the Philadelphia area. Marilyn and Caroline really hit it off. We also had some others at the table that were real characters. The two older folks here, Peter and Adrian King Sr., would banter back and forth because they're ex-military. And I think our table had to be one of the funnest at the event. And I know this because every once in a while I'd look over and I'd see John Kelly giving me the stink eye. So I did cool it a bit. I didn't want the Secret Service taking me away again. And here's a picture of me and John Kelly. Happy to say we made up, and actually we became BFFs. So he's pretty cool, I guess. And here's another photo where you can see Marilyn and I again on the extreme right. And you can see the stage on the left, and that speaker is the CEO of the Heritage Foundation, Robert Blackman, and he was the MC for the evening. Now here's a photograph, our two photographs of the Marine Color Guard presenting the colors. Then we have Commandant Miller, who is head of the Marine Corps. He spoke, and during part of his speech, he had all the Marines, whether active or retired, stand up in the audience, and they sung the Marine Corps hymn. So that was pretty cool, I thought. and in this photo, you can see the side and the back of my head just in front of General Kelly there. And here's a photo where you see Marilyn watching General Mattis talk. They had two big screens there, one on the right and one on the left. She's looking at the one on the left in this photo. Then it was time to hand out awards, and while we were waiting next to the stage for us to be called up on stage, they gave a surprise award to this lady in the audience, and it's pretty cool to see her reaction. Anyway, you see her on the big screen, and another photo of me watching the other big screen during her presentation. Now here's a picture of General Kelly, Chief of Staff Kelly on the right, and Marilyn kind of on the left. And I'm not there, so I must be up toward the stage or on stage. Maybe they're presenting my award at this time because none of them look very happy about it. I don't know. So now it's time for us to receive our awards. Here's a photo of me receiving my award. Photo out between General Neller on the left, Commandant Neller, and Lieutenant General Robert Blackman on the right. Now here's the group photo of us awardees. I'm second from the right. Jeff, that tall guy to the very right, is the author, my newest best friend author. Anyway, he cast a big shadow because he's so tall, and his shadow kind of fell on the side of my face there. So I'm not the best photo of me, but I'll take it. And this is the photo that they have up at their Marine Corps Museum website. And I'm in good company with this group. I see up here with 4-star General, 3-star Lieutenant General, retired, a couple best-selling authors, world-renowned artist, and the Senator right in the middle, Senator Warner. So pretty good company, I'd say. Lucky to be here, that's for sure. And again, I was more than happy to receive this award, but this award really belongs to Grandpa and Grandpa's nephew, Robert. I was just the vehicle. Oh, and before I go, I should mention this lady, the second person from the left, in the blonde hair. She is Susan Hatch. She is my go-to person, my contact. And she is the Vice President of Finance at the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. So there it is, our 15 minutes of fame. I guess I could bump it up to 6 hours of fame, but that's our night in a nutshell. Thanks for listening.